Alright, what's going on, guys? We are in the age of video game remakes. While it may seem like gaming has not evolved that much over the past few years, when you really start to look back 15-20 years ago, that change is exponential. And if we had to pick a game from that era that deserves a remake, I can think a few more worthy than Oblivion. Well, our prayers might finally be answered. Now, shout out to the team at Oblivion, their work is awesome and I can't wait for that, but I'm sure you've heard that by now it is all but officially confirmed that a true Oblivion remake is not only in the works, but could be releasing very soon. And we do surprisingly have a lot of information about this project from insiders and leakers that has been corroborated numerous times, so today I want to get you up to speed on literally everything we know about the Oblivion remake, and to say the least, this is looking very good. Now we've got a lot to discuss, but first, today's video was sponsored by Warhammer 40,000 Tacticus. Tacticus brings the exciting turn-based combat of Warhammer 40,000 and the expansive universe straight to your pocket. With over 2 million players, you can join the battlefield controlling numerous factions with over 80 champions combined, using your tactics to overcome your opponents in epic PvP combat. Tacticus offers the perfect entry point for new players of the universe, as well as an exciting experience for the veterans out there. And with a constant stream of fresh content from the developers, you can see why the game has almost perfect reviews on the App Store. So if you can't get enough of Warhammer 40,000 or strategy games in general, now is the perfect time to jump right in. So jump in today using my link down below or the QR code at the end, as well as the code HelloMar to get 2,000 gold as well as 40 Blackstones while this offer is available. So a big thank you to Warhammer 40,000 Tacticus for sponsoring today's video, and now let's get back into it. Now the first place we need to look when talking about this Oblivion remake is actually what it is. From the bits that we've heard, this remake is not coming from Bethesda themselves. We first heard about this from a legitimate leak from ZeniMax way back in the day that had an Oblivion remake originally planned for 2022. Now obviously we are in 2025 now and we have not gotten that Oblivion Remaster. So the timeline, according to that leak, was way off. Things obviously did not go to plan. However, the actual games listed were in fact real, and we've seen the majority of them actually release. So based on this leak, we can at least infer that this Oblivion Remaster was more than just a concept as of 2019. And since then, this has been passed around in whispers and rumors online that it was still in development, but we never got anything super concrete until recently, when in 2023, an employee of the game studio Virtuos also leaked that the game was in development. Now, who are Virtuos? Well, they're a game studio that assists other studios in major AAA projects. They've worked on tons of games, especially recently, such as the new Call of Duties, Hogwarts Legacy, Mortal Kombat 1, some updates for Cyberpunk, as well as the new Metal Gear Solid 3 remake, Snake Eater. So they do seem to be a very competent studio with a long history of very good games. So something like a remake of a classic title where they're not entirely making the game from scratch seems right up their alley. So it does appear that the Oblivion remake is in good hands. Now, since then, there have been numerous leaks from other Virtuos employees stating that the Oblivion remake was in development there and they worked on it in roundabout ways, such as through LinkedIn history, revealing that the remake will be made in Unreal Engine 5. Now, aside from the game being very pretty, that means a couple things. If it's not made in the creation engine, the game could potentially feel very different. Now, I'm sure you all are well aware that half of the charm of these Bethesda games is the ridiculous nature of their creation engine. As many people say, the bugs are features. But we don't know if it's being made from the ground up in UE5, or if they're just using it for the graphics, while the actual skeleton of the game remains the same. Now, I think that's much more likely, again given the nature of the studio behind the remake, as they don't typically make games from the ground up. But again, we probably won't have all those details until the game actually drops. So fast forward to this year, where another employee actually dropped a ton of details about the game itself, what's going to be changing, what new features they'll have, and lots of quality of life changes, since again, Oblivion is a very old game, and if you do go back and play it, you will very much feel that. So here's where we get to the actual meat of all of this. What is really going to be changing with this Oblivion remake? Well, according to this employee, the first major change they mentioned is the game will receive an updated HUD. A change which I think many people can agree it desperately needs. Now, I don't hate the Oblivion HUD. I actually like how minimal it is, and it has its charm, but it's pretty terrible at communicating information. Does that make it more immersive? Kind of. Well, we could definitely have some modernization here without losing that same feeling, especially when it comes to the quest logs and the map. Now, when they're talking about the HUD, the changes they specifically mention are making it easier to understand, which I think is very needed and kind of what we just talked about, as well as making it more aesthetically pleasing to younger players. Now, what does that mean? I don't know, but I do hope they still kind of keep that scroll-like feeling of the menus, but we'll just have to wait and see on that one. Now, the next major change they mention is blocking. I'll admit it's been a minute since I actually sat down and played Oblivion for a long time, but I did use a lot of blocking in my playthrough. I don't think I remember it being particularly bad. They do mention that it was boring, which I can kind of agree with, but they are doing a new system, supposedly taking inspiration from the Souls and Souls-like games. Now, I'm gonna be honest, I'm not entirely sure what that means because blocking in the Souls games is not exactly more exciting than it is in Skyrim or Oblivion, but they could potentially be meaning something like the parry that was introduced in Sekiro, where pressing the block button at exactly the right time will trigger a perfect block or a parry. You know, maybe that could work in an Oblivion remake. I could potentially see it doing the same effect that a shield bash in Skyrim has, where you kind of stun your enemies for a second. That would definitely make it more engaging. So I'm curious the direction they're going to take that. But it is going to have to work hand in hand with something else they said they're revamping, which is stamina. And they mentioned that it will be less frustrating, specifically mentioning the knockdown that occurs upon losing your stamina, stating that it will now be rarer, and they're changing up the calculations of how exactly that's triggered. I like that idea. That keeps you in the game more, in combat more often, and yeah, it was very frustrating. Another new improvement they mentioned is to Archery, specifically stating that they're making it more playable for both first and third person. I think that's good. Archery was definitely lacking a bit in Oblivion. They could very easily just use the same framework that's already in Skyrim because Archery is good in that game, arguably the best way to play. Cough cough. So if they can at least bring it up to par, that will do wonders for making Oblivion more fun. Now, to be perfectly honest with you, I have never played Archer in the third person in Oblivion, so I really can't tell you how bad it is. I've literally just never done it. So you guys in the comments, does third person archery work in Oblivion? And is this a much needed change? Now, the final major change they mention will be to sneak, stating that the sneak icons are now highlighted. And yeah, I think this is very necessary because the sneak icon as it is right now does get hard to tell when you are actually detected or not. You can very easily mistake it. Kind of like Archery, Skyrim solved this problem very easily by just having two different icons and the different levels of detection as the eye opens. They could very easily, just like Archery, bring it up to par. But they also mentioned that damage calculations while undetected will be changed as well. I'm not super familiar with how that's different in Oblivion versus Skyrim. Maybe you guys more familiar can let me know. But aside from that, they mentioned that enemies will react to hits much more to make more satisfying feedback in combat. But there's still a lot of other things I think they need to address with Oblivion that were very frustrating for me as the player. The two that come to mind for me immediately are weapon durability and enchantment usages on weapons. But y'all let me know in the comments what other features you want them to change about Oblivion or modernize. I'm sure there is quite a bit. And we can admit that there are faults with the original while still saying it's a good game. Now, the best news that we've heard about this so far actually comes in the form of the release date, because it seems like it's coming pretty soon. According to the popular insider Nate the Hate, we could be seeing a reveal and release in April, moved up from the June target which a lot of other leakers were stating. Now, we don't only have to take Nate the Hate's word for it, because the video game journal VGC stated that they have sources on the inside of this project as well that corroborated that information. That's crazy to me. We could be looking at as soon as 2 weeks that we actually get a reveal of the game, and maybe 1 or 2 more to get our hands on it. So that's fantastic news. I'm really excited. I can't wait to learn more about this Oblivion project. But that's where we're at. That's everything we know so far. And if it is releasing in only a few weeks, there's going to be more coming out almost every day. But what do you guys think? How is this Oblivion remake sounding to you? What other changes would you want them to make to Oblivion to make it hold up even more in the modern day? Y'all let me know down below. But if you are hyped for the Oblivion remake, let me know by leaving a like on the video. Once again, let me give a big thank you to Warhammer 40,000 Tacticus for sponsoring today's video. And don't forget that you can jump in today by using my link down below to get 2,000 gold as well as 40 blackstones. So join the epic battle today in Tacticus. But with all that, I will catch you in the next one.